Our third big topic today is about some new stats on AI's impact on jobs. And a couple of these kind of made me sit up and start paying some attention. 40% of jobs across the globe could be affected by the rise of AI, according to some new research from the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. And 60% of the jobs that are going to be impacted, they say, will be in, quote, high income nations, so the developed world. These researchers at the IMF kind of adapted a commonly used conceptual framework from a bunch of past studies to measure which types of human work will be exposed to AI. And when they looked across all these different types of jobs, high income nations ended up being most exposed to AI transformation. Now, why is this the case? Well, they theorized that emerging markets and low income countries don't have as much of the infrastructure of skilled workers to harness the immediate benefits of the AI that we have today. Now, overall, there's a ton to unpack in this. We'll link to all of the relevant research. There's a lot to go through. I'd encourage you to explore it if you're interested in it. But the overall picture here is that the research is saying AI is going to create some really big winners and some really big losers. And there's not a ton of space, it sounds like, in between. Some workers in high income countries are going to capture huge productivity gains and benefit financially from the technology. Others are going to see AI lower demand for their labor and possibly even eliminate their jobs. And the lower income countries generally sounds like they will be unable to fully leverage AI and may lose out to higher income countries that can use it to create macroeconomic benefits. So, first, I kind of want to take a step back here, Paul, before we dive into the specifics of this study and kind of frame the AI employment discussion for anyone who is either new to it or hasn't been following it that closely. Like, why exactly are we so worried as a society about AI taking jobs in the first place? Like, it seems like we're way more worried about AI and its impact on human employment than we have been at any other time when we talk about like traditional automation, say in factories or manufacturing, things like that.
Yeah, I think to kind of summarize the challenge here is we as humanity have gone through disruptive general purpose technology changes before, but we've never gone through one that's going to move so quickly.
Mm,
Usually you have years or decades to adapt. This one probably isn't going to give us that much time. In some industries, it can be months or 1 to 2 years where you have to kind of evolve. And so I think a lot of people just assume we'll figure it out. A large percentage of the US population and really around the world were farmers at one point. And now they're not. Now it's a very small percentage of population. And people say, well, we evolved. We found other jobs to do. Um, Horses were a pretty big thing for a while in city streets, and now you don't see them as often on city streets. And so you have this whole evolution that happens, but the thing we look at is you can look at the replacement of roles. And I think this is where the flaw happens a lot of times is people think about you will or will not need lawyers. You will or will
mm,
not need marketing consultants. You will or will not need customer service representatives. Um, it's not so much that the AI is going to replace at a one-to-one level, that it's going to take a job or a role and just eliminate it and do 100% of that job. What we talk about all the time is efficiency gains within that role to where you may just not need as many of those people.
mm,
So, top of mind for me right now is tax returns. So if you think about humans doing tax returns, it's a very manual process. Well, if the AI technology gets really, really good at assisting CPAs in doing these things, and to the point where maybe they can do 5 to 10 times the number of returns that they used to do, but in the same amount of time, the question becomes, do you need as many? The same can be applied to any form of knowledge work. It's just a question of if the AI does 10, 20, 50% of that job, of what that person does 150 hours a month or 180 hours a month, if it's doing that percentage of it, do we need as many people doing the work anymore? And so that's kind of, I think you and I are very similar plane here, at least based on the conversations we've had. It's not that we think AI is going to come in and just fully automate people out of jobs,
Mm,
but it seems very apparent it's going to drive massive efficiency gains in a lot of knowledge work roles. And it's going to happen probably pretty quickly. And so, will industries and companies have the time to adapt to where they can find other responsibilities for those people? Or are they just going to need fewer people to run these companies? And so I think that's why studies like this are important, because we don't have the answers. Like, the best economists in the world have research out about this and they have theories, but no one actually knows what's going to happen. And so we do surface this conversation a lot when we see reports that we think are worth paying attention to, not because we're pointing at it saying, see, we told you, like this. We're just saying, it's another data point. It's another perspective on a very important topic that doesn't get enough conversation. I wish, at least like in the United States, that it was a much bigger part of the upcoming election, but
mm.
I haven't heard anything about
No,
this
no.
impact. It's not even a topic, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, it really seemed like the only mainstream political conversation we had around this was when Andrew Yang, for instance, was like
Yeah.
running when he had the whole universal basic income, but that has really fallen far into the background in
Yeah. And it
recent years.
doesn't, when you look at the kind of the rhetoric of the current election cycle, I don't see this even getting surfaced as a topic, which is worrying to me, because that's, 10 months from now, or the next, whoever the president's going to be in the United States will take office about 12 months from now.
Yeah.
And that means we're now a year further out from doing anything about a technology that is racing through industries.
Especially with everything we just talked about with open source in the previous
Yeah.
topic too. Regardless of how slow or fast AI adoption is at the enterprise level, people have this stuff running on their laptops right now.
Yeah. And on your phones. I mean, you can have this technology on your
Right.
phone.
Yeah.
So,
So this study takes a really big picture, kind of macroeconomic approach to the topic, and totally understandable because it's the IMF doing this. But I'd love to talk for a minute about the micro, the on the ground impact. Like, if I'm your average business owner or business leader, small, medium, large business, like is this changing my perspective on hiring and human resources?
yeah, the guidance we give organizations is that you need to start future proofing your hires. So if you're looking out ahead and you have job descriptions of the people you're going to hire, you should have someone who has a reasonable understanding of AI technology and where it's going to go in the next 12 to 18 months, and can look at that job description and say, if that's 180 hours now per month, it's probably 110 to 90 hours
Mm,
12 months from now. Do you make that higher? And so what you could do is literally go through. I know you and I both teach this when we run workshops. Take the job description and look for the things that can be intelligently automated. Look at the bullet points of what people do.
yeah.
So you can do that with your current open roles and look at those jobs and say, okay, we were going to hire 5 people for this role based on an assessment of that role looking 12 months out. Maybe we only need 2. Let's hire 2 instead of 5 so we don't have to reduce. So again, we're not saying don't make hires or that you're just going to run with a ton fewer people. Maybe it's just you don't grow as quickly. We're seeing this consolidation in the tech industry already. Like, just 3 weeks into January, we've seen tens of thousands of layoffs in Silicon Valley.
Hmm.
Now, they're not saying it's all because of AI, but they're looking at efficiency gains within companies, saying we can run a much leaner organization now. So that's one thing you can do, is don't make new hires without assessing how AI is going to impact those roles. The other thing you can do is take your existing teams and roles and do an assessment and say, okay, 12 to 18 months from now, how much is AI going to be doing this person's job? And start planning now. And that doesn't mean start cutting jobs now. That means start finding ways to reallocate resources, to reskill and upskill people. So I think the best organizations are just going to take a very proactive approach to this. And if it ends up that it doesn't gain 10, 20, 30% efficiencies for different roles, I mean, what's the worst case? That you were prepared that it did? Like, that's my feeling on this, is because we don't know. The smartest economists in the world don't actually know what happens. Isn't it wise to prepare for both outcomes? One is
Hmm.
nothing changes, which like business as usual. The alternative is we gain a ton of efficiency and maybe we don't need as many people doing the jobs that are currently there today. Um, And then the third thing, I guess, to look out ahead is what are the jobs that might be created over the next 6 to 12 months that we're not even
Right.
thinking about? And I think that's an exciting thing. And that, again, like you may not have the people in your company that can envision that, but go find the people. There are consultants out there. There are people who can come in and kind of help you think this through, but really start to think in a more innovative way of what does a future marketing organization look like? We had Dan Slagan, the CMO of Tomorrow.io, spoke at our Macon conference last year, and that was what he did. He kind of like reimagined what a marketing org chart looks like and kind of started restructuring. I think you're going to see a
Mhm.
lot of really forward thinking companies doing that.